Most people don't lose sleep because life is hard. They lose sleep because their mind never stops. The endless what-ifs, the fears about tomorrow, the replay of yesterday's mistakes sound familiar. Modern life feels like a storm inside your head. You go to bed exhausted. Yet, your thoughts keep racing. You wake up restless, already anxious about the day ahead. And deep down, you wonder, will I ever feel at peace? This is exactly why the wisdom of Stoicism still matters today. The Stoics lived through war, plague, and uncertainty. Yet they found a way to stand calm in the middle of chaos. Their teachings were never about escaping reality, but about mastering your response to it. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Peace does not come from controlling the world. It comes from training your mind. What if I told you that by practicing just a few Stoic habits, you could stop the storm inside and finally take back control? Stay with me, because in this video, we're going to uncover those timeless lessons that still work in your daily life. And before we dive in, share in the comments, what's the one thought that keeps you awake at night? Your answer might be the very thing Stoicism can help you overcome. If this resonates, make sure to subscribe, because together, we're building a stronger, calmer mind. Habit number 1, premeditation of evils. Visualize hardship before it arrives. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and suddenly, things don't go as planned. Your car breaks down on the way to work. Your boss announces layoffs. A loved one says something that cuts deep. In those moments, most people collapse under the weight of surprise. But what if you had already seen it coming, not because you're pessimistic, but because you trained your mind for it? This is the heart of the Stoic practice called Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. The Stoics believed that when you prepare your mind for potential hardships, you strip them of their power to shock you. It's not about living in fear. It's about building resilience before life tests you. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, once wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, arrogance, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." He wasn't being cynical. He was reminding himself not to be blindsided. By expecting difficulty, he became stronger, calmer, and more compassionate when it arrived. Think about how this applies to modern life. You know, traffic will be bad, so instead of raging in the car, you've already pictured it and prepared a calm response. You know, projects at work may fail. Not every idea succeeds. So when one collapses, instead of despair, you see it as part of the game. You know, people may misunderstand you. Instead of being wounded, you remind yourself, misunderstanding is part of being human. What if the very thing you fear most is the tool that makes you stronger? That's the Stoic view. The obstacle is not your enemy, it's your teacher. And when you visualize obstacles in advance, you rob them of their sting. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're preparing for a big presentation. Instead of only rehearsing success, picture the worst. The projector fails. Someone interrupts. Your mind goes blank. By doing this, you rehearse composure, not just performance. So if the worst actually happens, you don't freeze, you breathe. You adjust. And you continue. The Stoics also recommended practicing this with life's biggest fears. Seneca, for example, advised his students to occasionally live with less, eat simple meals, wear plain clothes, and sleep on the floor, not to punish themselves, but to realize, is this what I was so afraid of? Suddenly, losing wealth or comfort didn't seem so terrifying, and with that, fear lost its grip. Now, think about your own life. What if you began each day by asking, what difficulties might I face today? And how will I meet them with strength? Imagine how much lighter your heart would feel if you walked into life's battles already armored in your mind. This isn't just philosophy. Modern psychology even backs it up. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective modern therapies, borrows heavily from this Stoic practice, teaching people to challenge their automatic thoughts and prepare balanced responses. So here's the invitation tonight. Before you sleep, try it. Picture one setback that could happen tomorrow. Don't dwell in fear. Simply prepare your spirit. Ask yourself, if this happens, how will I respond with calm, with courage, with dignity? By rehearsing hardship, you make peace your default. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one fear you're willing to face in your mind first? Before it faces you in real life, share it in the comments below, because your story might inspire someone else. And if you're finding value in these Stoic habits, make sure to subscribe, because we're only getting started. There are 9 more powerful habits that can reshape the way you live. Habit number 2, the dichotomy of control focus. Only on what's yours. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. Rain pouring down, winds howling. You can't control the weather, but you can control whether you stand firm, whether you find shelter, whether you let fear overwhelm you. This is the heart of the Stoic principle called the dichotomy of control. The clear division between what belongs to you and what never did. The Stoics taught that peace of mind comes when we stop wasting energy on what is beyond us. Epictetus said it simply, some things are in our control and others are not. What is in our control? Our actions, our choices, our words, the way we respond to events. What is not in our control? The opinions of others, the twists of fate, the outcomes of our efforts, the past that cannot be undone. Yet think about how often we reverse this. We pour endless energy into controlling the uncontrollable, trying to force people to like us, obsessing over outcomes we can't guarantee, replaying mistakes we cannot change, and at the same time, we neglect the one kingdom we truly govern: our own mind and our own behavior. The chains that bind you are not the events themselves, but the illusion that you can control them. You post something online. Some people applaud, others criticize. If you obsess over the reactions, you've given your peace away to strangers behind screens. But if you focus on the intention behind your post, the clarity of your message, the authenticity of your voice, then you remain unshaken. Or picture yourself at work. You give a presentation. You cannot control whether your boss is in a bad mood or whether the project gets approved, but you can control your preparation, your effort, your attitude. If you judge yourself by what is yours, the effort, you walk away with confidence, no matter the outcome. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He ruled an empire, yet he acknowledged that even an emperor cannot command the weather, the economy, or the hearts of men. His true dominion was within. This habit is liberating once you practice it. Imagine carrying 2 bags everywhere you go. One is filled with things you can control. The other is stuffed with everything outside your control. Most of us lug both. Growing, exhausted. The Stoics invite us to drop the second bag. Immediately, life feels lighter. But let's be clear, this is not passivity. It's not saying, do nothing, because you control nothing. On the contrary, it's radical responsibility. When you accept that only your actions and responses are yours, you stop blaming circumstances, and you begin shaping yourself. For example, you can't control if the company lays people off, but you can control how you prepare your skills, how you adapt, how you maintain dignity through change. You can't control whether someone loves you back, but you can control the honesty and kindness you bring into the relationship. You can't control aging, but you can control how you nourish your body, how you cultivate wisdom, how you live each day with gratitude. This mental shift is like unclogging a blocked river. All that wasted energy chasing the uncontrollable flows back into your hands. You now have energy for growth, for discipline, for creativity, for relationships that actually matter. Here's a practical exercise. At the end of each day, write down 2 columns. On the left, list the things that troubled you. On the right, mark which were within your control and which were not. Then make a decision. Release the ones that aren't yours. Focus only on the ones that are. Over time, you'll see a pattern. Most of what torments you never belonged to you in the first place. The Stoics knew that freedom is not found in bending the world to your will, but in mastering the inner territory of your own heart. When you stop fighting battles that aren't yours, you conserve your strength for the ones that are. So the question to carry with you is this: am I spending today on what I can change, or wasting it on what I can't? The answer will decide not just your peace of mind, but the quality of your life. Habit number 3. Limit inputs. Protect the food of your mind. Have you ever noticed how what you consume shapes the way you feel? And I don't just mean food for your body. I'm talking about food for your mind. Imagine scrolling through social media late at night, a flood of bad news, arguments in the comments, images designed to make you feel like you're not enough. Before you even realize it, your heart rate is up, your peace is gone, and your sleep is broken. This is why the Stoics urged us to limit our inputs. Seneca warned, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And much of that suffering today is planted by what we let enter our minds through screens, conversations, and environments. What you allow in will shape what lives within. Think about it. You wouldn't eat spoiled food and expect to feel healthy. Yet many of us feed our minds with toxic news, endless gossip, and negative voices every single day. We wonder why we feel anxious, restless, or heavy. The truth is simple. The mind digests what it consumes. Garbage in, turmoil out. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his Meditations, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. If you constantly expose yourself to anger, envy, and fear, your soul will reflect those very shades. But if you choose wisdom, gratitude, and meaningful conversation, your inner world becomes brighter." Let's make this practical. Imagine you start your morning with the news. It's filled with disasters, political fights, and scandals. Immediately, your mind is set to fear and defensiveness. But if instead you begin with a short reflection, a good book, or even silence, your day starts on a completely different foundation. Or picture relationships. You spend time with someone who always complains, always criticizes, always spreads drama. You walk away drained. Compare that to spending time with a friend who encourages, challenges you to grow, and listens with care. One interaction depletes, the other replenishes. Which one is feeding your mind? The Stoics weren't asking us to run away from the world or hide from reality. They were teaching discernment. Epictetus reminded his students that philosophy is about training the soul, choosing what strengthens your character and refusing what weakens it. Social media. Platforms are designed to pull your attention, to keep you scrolling, to make you compare yourself endlessly. If you don't set boundaries, you become a prisoner of inputs. But if you use it intentionally to learn, to connect, to be inspired, then it becomes a tool rather than a trap. So how do you practice this Stoic habit? Start small. Audit your inputs. For 1 week, pay attention. What news? What shows? What conversations dominate your mind? Do they leave you peaceful or restless too? Set boundaries. Choose a time of day to disconnect. Maybe no news before noon. Maybe no phone in the bedroom. Create sacred spaces where your mind can breathe. Choose nourishing voices. Instead of filling your head with noise, choose wisdom books that challenge you, podcasts that uplift, conversations that matter. Guard your relationships. Not every voice deserves space in your life. It's not harsh to limit time with those who drain you. It's wise stewardship of your soul. This habit is not about living in ignorance. It's about living with intention. The world will always have noise, but you decide how much enters your gates. Just as a city has walls to protect its citizens, your mind needs boundaries to protect its peace. Think of your attention as currency. Every click, every view, every conversation is a transaction. Ask yourself, did that enrich me? Or did it impoverish me? Over time, these choices compound. Peace is not an accident. It's the result of discipline in what you allow inside. So the Stoic invitation is clear. Curate your inputs like you would guard your diet. If you wouldn't drink poison, don't consume toxic information. If you wouldn't live on junk food, don't live on gossip. Feed your mind what is strong, what is noble, what is true. Because at the end of the day, the quality of your life depends on the quality of your mind. And your mind becomes what you feed it. Habit number 4. Nightly reflection. The mirror of the soul. There's a powerful but almost forgotten practice. The Stoics lived by looking back at the day before closing their eyes at night. Before drifting into sleep, they didn't scroll through distractions or drown in noise. Instead, they sat in stillness, replayed the day, and had an honest conversation with themselves. Seneca once wrote, "When the day is over, I review my words and deeds. I hide nothing from myself. I pass nothing by." This wasn't about self-punishment or guilt. It was about keeping their inner life clean, making sure each day wasn't wasted, but turned into a stepping stone toward wisdom. Imagine this. You're sitting in a quiet room. The lights dimmed. The world finally slowing down. You ask yourself just 3 questions. 1. Did I live according to my values today? 2. Where did I stumble? And how can I do better tomorrow? 3. What did I get right? And how can I acknowledge that progress? Simple questions, but they have the power to transform an ordinary day into a meaningful one. Mini hook. A day without reflection is a day lost for growth. Think of your life like a book. Each day is a single page. Some pages you write beautifully. Others get messy, smudged with mistakes. Nightly reflection is the act of flipping back and checking what you wrote. If today's page was sloppy, you don't tear it out, you learn from it. And tomorrow, you write more carefully, more intentionally. Here's the hidden gift. Reflection gives you peace at night. Many of us toss and turn, replaying regrets or worrying about tomorrow. But when you take even 10 minutes to honestly review your day, you close the account. You end the day clear, not cluttered. You go to bed not with heavy baggage, but with a lighter heart. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminded himself, "Do not let sleep catch you before reviewing what you did and what you left undone." Why? Because night is the time for the soul to reset, and when the soul is at peace, the body follows. In today's world, this practice is more urgent than ever. Life moves at breakneck speed. Emails, notifications, deadlines, endless chatter online. Days blur together, and before we know it, weeks or months are gone. But by setting aside even a few minutes each night, you reclaim ownership of your life. You don't just live on autopilot, you live awake. Picture writing a short journal entry. "Today I lost my patience with a coworker. That's not the patience I want to cultivate. But I also encouraged a friend who was struggling, and that reflects the compassion I value." See how that works. One moment of honesty, one moment of gratitude, no judgment, just clarity. Nightly reflection won't make you flawless. That's not the goal. What it does is shape you into someone who is growing deliberately, becoming more aligned with your principles day by day. It turns mistakes into lessons instead of regrets, and victories into reminders of what's possible. And maybe the greatest gift is this: instead of fearing the darkness of night, you begin to welcome it, because it's in that silence, in that stillness, where you reconnect with your true self. The world outside may be loud and chaotic, but your inner world can remain steady if you choose to pause and reflect. So tonight, when the day ends, don't just collapse into sleep. Take those few minutes. Ask the questions. Face yourself. And you'll discover what the Stoics already knew, that peace isn't given. It's practiced. And it begins when the lights go out and you choose to look inward. Habit 5. Amor, Fati, love your fate. There's a phrase the Stoics lived by. Amor, Fati, love your fate. Not just accepting what happens, not just enduring the pain, but actually learning to love every twist and turn of life, even the ones we never asked for. At first, this sounds impossible. How could anyone love failure, heartbreak, or disappointment? How could someone smile in the face of loss? But the Stoics weren't naive. They knew life would always deliver pain, setbacks, and unexpected storms. What they discovered was that our greatest power lies not in controlling what happens, but in choosing how we meet it. Imagine this: you lose a job you thought was secure. Most people panic, complain, or spiral into despair. But the Stoic response would be different. Instead of saying, "Why me?" they would say, "Why not me?" They would see the setback as a teacher. Maybe it's pushing you toward a new path, a better opportunity, or a chance to discover strength you didn't know you had. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, faced endless challenges: wars, betrayal, sickness, the death of people he loved. Yet in his journals, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, The obstacle isn't just something to survive. It's the very thing that shapes you. The challenge itself is the path forward. Here's the truth. If you only love the good moments, your peace will always be fragile. The moment something breaks, you will break with it. But if you learn to love everything, yes, even the things that hurt you, can walk through life unshaken. Because then, nothing is wasted. Not the failures, not the heartbreak, not even the tears. Think of history's great survivors. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison instead of letting it destroy him. He used it to transform his heart and prepare for leadership. Or think of Helen Keller, who lost both sight and hearing, but turned her fate into a legacy of courage. These lives remind us the story is never about what happens, it's always about what we do with it. Now let's bring it closer to home. Ask yourself, what's one moment in your life you hated when it happened, but now you see it differently? Maybe the breakup that forced you to rediscover your independence, the failure that humbled you and taught you resilience, the mistake that showed you who your real friends were. Looking back, you can almost whisper, "Thank you, life. That pain had a purpose." That's Amor, Fati. To see every experience as fuel for growth, to stop labeling events as good or bad, and instead see them all as necessary chapters in your story. When you live this way, suffering doesn't vanish, but it transforms. Pain becomes wisdom. Setbacks become stepping stones. Even death, the ultimate certainty, becomes a reminder to live with urgency and gratitude. Here's a simple way to practice Amor Fati. The next time something unwanted happens, traffic, rejection, loss, pause and say to yourself, "This too is part of the plan. This too belongs to me." Instead of resisting reality, you embrace it. Instead of asking life to be easier, you become stronger. And maybe, just maybe, you start to love the very things that once terrified you, because you see them not as punishments, but as invitations to grow. So remember, Amor Fati isn't passive. It's not sitting back and saying, "I can't change anything." No, it's the courage to face life head-on, to take whatever comes, and to say, "Yes, I welcome this too. I will make something of it." When you live this way, you become unshakable. You don't just survive fate, you dance with it. And in that dance, you discover the freedom and peace the Stoics called true strength. Habit 6. Presence, living in the now. The Stoics remind us of a truth that sounds simple but is often the hardest to live. By the present moment is all we truly have. Think about it. The past is gone, no matter how much we replay it in our heads. We cannot change a single detail. The future hasn't arrived yet, no matter how much we worry. It remains a mystery. Yet most of us spend our lives trapped in those two illusions. We relive old mistakes, regret words we can't take back, or fear outcomes that may never happen. And in doing so, we miss the only place where life actually happens, right here, right now. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Do not let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the present situation." He understood that anxiety multiplies when we try to carry the weight of yesterday and tomorrow at the same time. But peace, real peace, can only be found in this very breath, this very moment. Picture this: you're sitting at dinner with your family, but your mind is replaying a mistake from work or worrying about bills that aren't even due yet. Your body is in the room, but your soul is elsewhere. You're missing the laughter, the warmth, the little details that make life rich. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities. It means not letting regrets and fears steal the beauty of the now. Here's the irony. Most of the things we fear never even happen. We spend countless hours worrying about conversations that never take place, failures that never arrive, disasters that never come. The Stoics saw this as a tragic waste. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you catch yourself spinning in worry, pause and ask, is this happening right now? Or am I just imagining it? Often, the answer is clear. Presence also sharpens our decisions. When we are fully engaged in the now, we can respond wisely instead of reacting out of panic. A simple example is driving. If your mind drifts into the past or the future while you're on the road, even for a moment, danger rises. But with full attention, you notice every detail, every signal, every opportunity to act safely. Life works the same way. One powerful tool the Stoics used was the breath. Your breath is always in the present. You can't breathe yesterday's air, and you can't take tomorrow's breath. The next time your mind races, stop and anchor yourself in 3 deep breaths. Feel the air enter. Feel it leave. For that moment, you are here alive, grounded, whole. Another practice is mindful gratitude. Look around you right now. The chair you're sitting on, the food you ate this morning, the roof over your head. All of these are small miracles we often overlook because we're too busy chasing something else. When you pause to notice them, life expands. Suddenly, the ordinary feels extraordinary. Of course, this doesn't mean you should never plan for the future or reflect on the past. Those are important, but they should be tools, not prisons. Planning helps you prepare, but you return to the present to act. Reflection helps you learn, but you return to the present to live. The key is always coming back to the now. So ask yourself, where is my mind right now? Am I stuck in yesterday's regrets? Am I lost in tomorrow's worries? Or am I fully awake to the gift of today? Because here's the truth: when you live in the present, you unlock a quiet power. You begin to see clearly, you hear fully, you love deeply. The noise fades, the fear weakens, and what remains is peace. Not the peace of a perfect life, but the peace of a fully lived one. The Stoics weren't just teaching philosophy. They were teaching a way of being, a way of stepping into each moment as if it's enough, because it is. This very moment is your life. Don't miss it. Habit 7. Voluntary discomfort training. Strength through hardship. Here's a paradox of life. The more comfort we chase, the weaker we often become. Modern society tells us to seek ease at every turn. Soft beds, endless entertainment, food delivered to our doors. Yet, deep down, we know comfort can dull the edge of our spirit. That's why the Stoics practiced what they called voluntary discomfort. They believed that by choosing small hardships today, we build resilience for tomorrow. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often reminded himself, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, is this the condition that I feared? What does this look like in practice? It can be as simple as skipping a meal, sleeping on the floor for a night, taking a cold shower, or walking instead of driving. These small, chosen discomforts remind us of 2 powerful truths. First, that we need far less than we think to survive. And second, that hardship isn't as terrifying as our minds make it out to be. Think about how most people react when difficulty suddenly strikes: job loss, illness, rejection, financial stress. If life has been nothing but comfort, these storms can feel unbearable. But if you've trained your mind and body through voluntary discomfort, you're not caught off guard. You've rehearsed resilience. You've built a mindset that says, I can endure, I can adapt, I can rise. Let me give you a modern example. Athletes push their bodies in training far beyond what they'll face in competition. Why? Because when the real test comes, they're prepared. The same applies to life. By stepping into discomfort willingly, we transform suffering from something that breaks us into something that strengthens us. Another hidden benefit of voluntary discomfort is gratitude. After you sleep on the floor for one night, your bed feels like heaven. After fasting for a day, a simple piece of bread tastes like a feast. When you choose discomfort, you sharpen your appreciation for the comforts you already have. You stop taking them for granted. Now, this doesn't mean living a life of constant misery or punishing yourself. The Stoics weren't against comfort. They were against dependency. Comfort is fine, so long as you're not a slave to it. The real danger is when comfort owns you, when you can't imagine life without it. Voluntary discomfort breaks that chain. In our modern world, this practice is more relevant than ever. Many anxieties today come not from true suffering, but from the fear of losing comfort. What if I lose my job? What if I can't afford the same lifestyle? What if people think less of me? But when you practice living with less, when you experience small hardships by choice, you realize you are tougher than you imagined. And life is still worth living, even without luxury. So here's a question to reflect on. When was the last time you deliberately chose discomfort? When was the last time you stretched yourself beyond ease? Not because you had to, but because you wanted to grow. The Stoics would challenge you to try it this week. Take a cold shower. Leave your phone at home for a day. Skip a favorite indulgence. Walk in the rain without rushing. Each act of chosen discomfort is like a mental workout, strengthening your spirit for the storms you cannot predict. Because here's the truth, hardship will come, whether you invite it or not. You can't control the timing, but you can control your preparation. And voluntary discomfort is the training ground. When life finally tests you, and it will, you'll be ready, not broken. Habit 8. Focus on virtue, not outcome, living by what truly matters. We live in a world obsessed with results, grades, salaries, promotions, followers, likes, trophies. From a young age, we're trained to measure our worth by outcomes, but the Stoics offered a radical alternative. True success is not about what you achieve, but about who you are while you pursue it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." Think about that for a moment. The outcome, whether people praise you or criticize you, whether your effort ends in victory or failure, doesn't define your worth. What defines you is the virtue you bring to the table: honesty, courage, discipline, kindness. Let's take an example. Imagine two athletes. One cheats his way to the gold medal. The other competes with honor, gives his all, but finishes second. Who truly succeeded, according to society? The gold medalist did. According to Stoicism, the virtuous athlete did, because virtue cannot be taken away. While medals eventually fade, the same applies in everyday life. Maybe you speak the truth at work, and it costs you popularity. Maybe you stay disciplined in your health, and the results come slowly. Maybe you choose kindness in a world that seems cruel. The outcome may not look glamorous, but you've already won, because you've aligned with virtue. Here's the beauty of this mindset. It frees you from anxiety. You no longer live enslaved by results. You can't fully control. You can't force people to like you. You can't guarantee wealth or status, but you can always choose integrity. You can always choose to act with courage. That choice is yours every single day. Epictetus reminded his students, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. What he meant was, simple outcomes are outside your control. Your actions, your character, that's where your power lies. Think about how peaceful life becomes when you internalize this. If you measure success by virtue, you'll never feel like a failure. Even if projects collapse, even if doors close, you'll know you acted with honesty and effort, and that knowledge is a kind of quiet, unshakable strength. So how do we practice this? Start by shifting your inner scoreboard. Instead of asking, did I win? Ask, was I honest? Instead of, did I get recognition? Ask, was I courageous? Instead of, did I reach the outcome I wanted? Ask, did I live true to my values today? Over time, this shift transforms the way you live. You'll find more peace in failure, because even failure becomes noble if it's guided by virtue. You'll find more humility in success, because success is no longer about applause, but about character. And you'll discover a deeper kind of happiness, one that doesn't depend on luck, but on the daily practice of living by what truly matters. The Stoics knew that outcomes fade, but vertu endure. Titles, money, fame, they come and go. But the legacy of your integrity, your courage, your compassion, that's what lasts. And in the end, that's the only kind of success worth striving for. Habit 9. Memento Mori. Remember death to truly live. There's a phrase the Stoics repeated often, Memento Mori. It means remember that you will die. At first, it sounds dark, maybe even depressing. Why should we think about death? Isn't life already hard enough without dwelling on our mortality? But the Stoics didn't use this phrase to frighten themselves. They used it to wake up, to remind themselves of how precious every moment is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do. Say and think." He wasn't being morbid. He was pointing us toward urgency. Too often, we live as if we're guaranteed endless tomorrows. We waste hours scrolling on our phones, arguing about meaningless things, putting off what really matters, telling people we love them, pursuing our deepest callings, living with courage. But the truth is, none of us know how many days we have left. When you remember death, life takes on a sharper clarity. Suddenly, the petty annoyances of daily life shrink. That rude comment, that delayed flight, that awkward conversation, do they really matter? In the grand scheme of things, not really. What matters is how you spend the limited time you have. Think about it. If you only had 1 year left to live, how would you spend it? Would you keep stressing over what strangers think of you? Would you keep postponing your dreams? Or would you start living with more intention, more love, more gratitude, more courage? That's the gift of Memento Mori. It cuts through distraction and teaches us to focus on what's essential. The Stoics didn't fear death, because they knew fearing it changes nothing. What they feared was wasting life. Seneca put it beautifully, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Death is not the enemy. A wasted life is. So how do we practice this habit? One way is simple at the end of each day. Remind yourself that you are one day closer to the end. Instead of feeling dread, let it inspire gratitude. You made it through another sunrise and sunset. That's a gift. Another way is to imagine if today were your last. Would you be proud of how you lived? This doesn't mean living recklessly, but living meaningfully, choosing honesty over lies, love over bitterness, presence over distraction. When you carry the thought of mortality in your heart, you stop postponing life. You start calling your parents more often. You forgive quicker. You risk embarrassment to follow your passions. You realize that the perfect time will never come. The only time you have is now. Memento Mori is not a call to despair. It's a call to urgency. It whispers, stop waiting. Stop drifting. Stop wasting your life on things that don't matter. Start living fully. Right now, while you can. The Stoics knew that remembering death was the surest way to embrace life. And if we practice this daily, we'll find ourselves more present, more grateful, and more alive than ever before. Habit 10. Journaling, the Stoic practice of writing to clarify the mind. If there is one habit that every great Stoic practiced without fail, it's journaling. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at his time, kept a private notebook. Today we know it as Meditations, but it wasn't meant to be published. It was his journal, a place where he wrestled with his fears, his doubts, and his daily lessons. And if an emperor who carried the weight of an empire found strength in journaling, imagine what it could do for you and me. Journaling is more than just writing random thoughts. It's a daily practice of honesty with yourself. It's looking at your worries on paper instead of letting them swirl endlessly in your head. When you write them down, they lose their power. They stop being shadows chasing you and become words you can face directly. The Stoics believed that the unexamined life leads to confusion. By writing, you examine yourself. You ask, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What lessons can I carry forward? This simple reflection helps you grow, not in giant leaps, but in steady, daily steps. Think about it. How many times have you gone to bed with your mind racing, replaying conversations, regretting mistakes, worrying about tomorrow? Instead of carrying all that weight into your sleep, journaling gives you a way to release it. You put the burden on paper and walk into the night lighter, calmer, clearer. Seneca once said, every night we should call ourselves to account. That's what journaling is, an honest conversation with yourself before the day ends. No audience, no judgment, just you and the page. And here's the beauty, you don't need to write pages and pages. Even a few sentences can shift your mindset. Try writing down 3 things. 1 worry, 1 lesson, and 1 gratitude. Over time, these entries become a mirror of your growth. You look back months later and realize how far you've come. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Journaling is also a tool for perspective. When you reread old entries, you notice patterns. Maybe you keep stressing about the same thing, and suddenly you realize it wasn't as big as you thought. Or maybe you see how often you overcame challenges you once thought were impossible. That's powerful evidence that you are capable of more than you give yourself credit for. The page becomes your silent teacher, your patient listener, your daily coach. And over time, this habit doesn't just clear your mind, it shapes your character. It teaches you discipline, reflection, humility, and resilience. So, If you want to practice Stoicism in a way that truly transforms you, start journaling. Not tomorrow, not someday today. Pick up a notebook, grab a pen, and write your thoughts, your struggles, your lesson. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be honest. Because the truth is, the page doesn't judge. It only helps you see more clearly. And that's the real power of journaling. It makes your invisible battles visible, so you can face them, learn from them, and move forward stronger than before, walking the Stoic path. At the end of the day, these 10 Stoic habits are not abstract theories buried in dusty books. They are living tools, practices you can carry into every morning, every challenge, and every quiet moment before you sleep. The Stoics remind us of something simple yet profound. You may not control the storms of the world, but you do control the captain at the helm, your mind, your choices, your response. Each time you journal, reflect, practice gratitude, or remind yourself of Memento Mori, you take another step toward freedom. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom from being ruled by it. You become stronger, calmer, less shaken by noise, and more anchored in peace. And here's the truth. This isn't about perfection. It's about practice. It's about choosing, again and again, to align with virtue instead of fear, with clarity instead of confusion, with calm instead of chaos. Over time, these daily habits shape you into someone unshakable, someone who can walk through life with both resilience and grace. If this journey speaks to you, if you want to go deeper into ancient wisdom that brings peace to our modern chaos, I invite you to join me here. Subscribe to the channel, share your reflections in the comments, and let's keep walking the Stoic path together, because peace isn't found by accident. It's built habit by habit, day by day.